Hi all and welcome back. Sitting here at the office desk and had a Howa 1100 come in. Picked it up pretty cheap because the owner didn't like it or had the usual issues. One of which was the scope base. I don't know if you can see there, the height between here and here is quite considerable difference. The scope base says it's for a Howa M1100, but it had a stepped higher at the front than back. It was actually the right height for the mini action, Howa mini action, but with the holes drilled in the right spot. So it came in, it was bent. I've straightened it out and I'm quite happy with how it looks. It's nice and straight, but I needed an MOA taper, so I've machined it down and I'll put some aluminum compound in there and bedded it, and now we have a nice Howa 1100 with the 40 MOA taper it is. Couple little things. The trigger, I put a excuse me, a gun bloke trigger kit through it. So I've got it's the two-stage hacked Howa actuated trigger, actuated control trigger. So the hacked trigger, I put the 1.5 pound trigger pull in it, so it's got half pound first and then 1.5 second. It's really nice and crisp. I did have to do, apart from putting the spring kit in, I did have to with there was a burr on the inside of the action. You can see there the chamber where I've polished that. The chamber mouth had quite a burr on it and I was actually dragging a bit of lead off. So got that all sorted and fixed. Also we've given it, I've given it a new 11 degree, I don't know if that'll focus, 11 degree target crown on that. There we go. So got rid of the Howa stepped 45 degree chamfer. She's nice and sharp at that edge now, and nice 11 degree crown. So that all worked out well. So these are just little improvements to make the little Howa 1100 work. You can make them work for you by doing very similar. Just check that the chamber mouth doesn't have any burrs on it, not shaving any stuff from it. Now the bolt is a little bit more work, just to make things run a bit better. At this section, this section right here, and the bolt body, right there, just put a little 45 on it, because it's sharp like this, the front edge, nice and sharp here. And you know, you can see that how sharp it is. If you look at back there, see I've put that little 45 on it. It's a lot smoother in closing then, which works real well. The other thing I did was modify the extractor and polish the bolt face. The cartridge holding, it's not really an extractor because of the shape of it. You can see there, it's designed for the rim to come out up over it when it gets pushed back. Stay focused. So I modified and polished that a little bit better, so ejection was better. And we put a little bit more of a chamfer on the inside edge. Stay in focus, you bugger. On that inside edge right here, I put a bit more of a chamfer there. And we've done the same thing on the inside of the extractor too. Just a small chamfer on the inside, probably about half, to allow the rim, when it comes up underneath, up under here, it'll actually pop straight up. Because what happens if you don't do it, the cartridge will actually sit about that angle. It'll come part way up into the chamber, and then as you push in the chamber, it'll pop up. But the problem with that is the bottom edge of the rim, as you're driving it forward for it to pop up, is shaving off lead from the projectile underneath. So if you do those little chamfers, as it pops up out of the magazine, it'll pop straight up into there and you won't have any problems. The other thing I've done with the bolt is this bottom edge here, and on that edge right there, we've done it sort of that sharp corner. We've actually put a bit of a chamfer on that as well. Bit of a 45 on it, and polished this under surface area to a mirror finish, because that area there is actually what is rubbing on the cartridge case. So with that sharp edge, that will also take jam into the case and drive the case forward out of the magazine, as well as trying to shave off some more lead off of the projectile. So give that a nice little chamfer and you won't have that problem either. Magazines. There was only one magazine that I just had to make sure. I think it was, you see this one here, probably in the light, yep, just there. You can see where I just had to file that back, just scrape it back on that latch, that magazine latch right there. I just had to shave that back just ever so slightly to allow for the magazine latch to lock in properly when it was in its correct position. The other one was perfectly fine. So check your magazines, make sure they lock in, and if you have to, just use a sharp knife, you can, and just scrape a bit off until it works perfectly. Right, stock. What I found with the stock. Now we'll go from this side here. Now, every rifle has a recoil area, even 22s, and on the Howa M1100, it's this back section here. And you can see how much gap has gone into filling that gap where the recoil lugs were touching, to make it work properly and lock in properly. You'll probably see, you can see that little mark there. There's 4 little ribs, one there, and you can just see the other one just there. That's where the action was actually touching, and that's it. So grinding it out and putting some in there so it fits perfectly flat and works well. Do that first, and then you'll have your recoil operating directly on the stock, and that'll save you some issues. Now, I did notice that with this particular stock, and I'm assuming it will be with all Howas, with the M1100s with these anyway, I was getting quite a bit of compression on, you got a T30 head, so you can get quite a bit of torque on those, and I was getting a lot of compression in the stock. So what I did was actually made up 2 bushings with a 3mm head, T-shaped. So it's got the wide head at the bottom and then T-shaped. So you can see how wide that is. It's about 12mm wide. It fits down in there. And about 8mm wide at this side. You see in there and there. You can just see the diameters of them. So it's T-shaped, so it won't compress the stock any more than it is. It goes all the way through to the metal and sits underneath. Of course, that fixed all the compression issues. As far as bedding's concerned, I actually scalloped out. You can see where it's come away from here. I'm not concerned about that. This back section here come away from there, and a little bit down here. I left that high, but in between the diameters of the actual bushing all the way up, I've ground out quite a bit, about 3mm. So I've got quite a bit of depth and some stability in the bedding compound in this section. Same deal for the front section. We've done that little rib on the outside, and then everything in there has been ground out below the surface of the bushing, and then about 3mm. So I've got some good depth of compound and locks in. So it locks in on the base, top and bottom. And of course, the bushing itself has been bedded compound in there as well, with bedding compound. So that locks it down and rock solid, doesn't move, doesn't flex. The last thing was that the stock wasn't quite full floating. It was at the front, here in this section here. We had a good 1/8 of an inch clearance, but it was touching on the sides. So easy to do with a sharp scalpel or a sharp knife. You can just scrape out Easier than filing because being the type of plastic it is, it just kind of wants to gall instead of file. And then just scrape it out until I had about 1/8 of an inch either side, all the way down. You can see that there on that side where it's been filed out. So all the way down, it's 100% floating. The last thing I did, and I've only done this just because they do have a reasonably flat bottom, but I did scrape the bottom to make it perfectly flat in the bottom, because I am going to be putting an arca rail on the bottom. Just a short 200mm one, which will come to about, or there I think, sitting it from the front of this here. So put an arca rail on there. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because this is my daughter's first rifle. One of my daughters, my last youngest daughter's first rifle. She turns 12 this year, and I wanted to get her something that was special. I saw this thing, it needed a little bit of work. It only had, well, it was practically brand spanking new. It's just, like I said previously, the previous owner didn't like it. But, you know, for a cheap rifle, I reckon it's pretty damn good, to be honest with you. It's been well made, but I believe the execution lacked some finite improvements, you could say. It needed a few minor things just to make it work absolutely perfectly. Now, I've tried this in my blast chamber. Feeds, fires, I put 50 rounds through it with both magazines. Feeds perfectly, extracts perfectly, ejects perfectly, and nothing's touching on the stock at all. So, yes, I'll put this together quickly, and I'll show you. So I'll just have to put that in there. And the beauty of this bedding in the back, I can lock it into the back area. If you can see that, running out of room here. So I can lock that into that back area there. So I just lock it on, and because I lock it on there, it automatically wants to line up the magazine latch and just drop straight in. So that's perfect. So I'll put the front screw in, back screw in. And because of the bushings, the stainless steel bushings that are in there, they've got a 1/4 inch hole. It's a 6mm bolt. So I've got a little bit of play with the movement, but because of the bedding, everything locks up perfectly and there's no compression whatsoever, so it just does up tight, and there it is in there. And you can see there, hopefully, you can see how much clearance I've got down the channel, front and back. It's just awesome. Okay. The other thing that's going to be done with this is like going to be probably video 1. There'll be video 2 and possibly video 3 of this, because being my daughter's first rifle, we've gone to the automotive store yesterday and bought some hot pink paint. Yep, her favourite colour, hot pink. So now I've got the plastic bumper undercoat to go on the plastic, and then the top coat and some clear coat in hot pink. So we won't be painting the barrel or anything, but we're painting the stock and probably the scope when I get it and put it on there. So you'll see it out the range, and we'll put some targets down range and go from there and see what it looks like. And yeah, one of the things I do really love about this Howa, in as far as 22s are concerned, like the Rugers, which is why I like my Rugers, is the fact that, if I can rearrange this slightly for you, we've got this separate bolt release. So trigger mechanism, not like your ant shoots and whatnot. You've got a completely separate trigger to the bolt release. And yeah, it just works perfectly. Magazines, they snap in. Perfect. And yeah, so there's a bird's eye view of what this thing's going to look like in the end. Yeah, with a 40 MOA taper, and it'll be in hot pink. I'll just pick the thing up so you can see it a bit better. There we go. And we will, like I said, we will be putting the Arca rail on it. That'll be stayed in black, but the stock itself, that will be going as a hot pink for her, and probably the scope will be painted hot pink as well. Okay guys, cheers for watching, and I hope that those little tips that I've expressed to you today, with your bolt and trigger and chamber and bedding and that, hope that's of some benefit for you and helps you out. Safe shooting.